Then we move on to the challenges that we face. Definitely the unit testing is, when you develop this kind of application, you are first of all very dependent on the tools that you are using. They should be available. You need to adjust those things again and again to see how things are working, and it is very difficult to create the test data for it, right? Some of the tools definitely provide you something like Connect, which gives you the flexibility to create the test data, like record your streams, and you can play those streams on your application without moving yourself. So definitely unit testing is a challenge, but it can be overcome. There are other things like you can save those raw streams and you can process your application tools like MATLAB and all, but definitely that will restrict your technology options too. Dynamic external conditions. We have already talked about how it is difficult when you are working in extreme condition, something like in daylight, when the sun is on top of us. You don't want to be expose your cams, Kinects, or leave motion to those kind of conditions, because that is something which gives a problem with the color scheme that you get. Also, when you install multiple devices like multiple Kinects, you have the problems with the interference of different infrared. So the kind of information, the kind of streams that you get is also a challenge to read. Versatile human behavior. This is something which is very important to talk about, because this is also a very important thing to consider. Like, you try to create an application, you have to consider what kind of people you are expecting to use, and or rather I should say what kind of countries or geographies it will be used in. Because sometimes what happens, you design your natural user interface or your gesture which will be having a significant cultural meaning in one particular country but nothing in someone else, or maybe some kind of physical abuse, right? So definitely this is something which you need to consider. And also, natural user interface doesn't mean that you can create any kind, technically you can create any kind of gestures, but you should not be asking too much from your users. When I say that, what I mean is, let's say I am trying to implement the waving gesture. What happens? I should not be expecting, because my technical implementation will be very simple. If I just do a straight hands up on top of my head and then do the gesture, that will be very simple implementation to do. But that is something which I do not expect my consumer of the applications, right? They may do on the shoulder line, they may be a bit lower as well while doing the waves. So that is something kind of things which we should consider. The last but also important is the performance. So every device that we work upon has its limitation. It has its own field of view, and it works well in that particular field of view. It sees the information, it gives me detailed information out of it. But once I challenge those restrictions, the results will be different. Something like when you work on the Connect, you have different modes available for you, which is the near mode and far mode. Let's say if you want to work on a very near mode application, working very closely to the interface, you can do it in Connect, but definitely you cannot do it in very simple webcams. Or something about the far mode, right? The resolution goes down, the clarity of the data that we get is also goes down. So we need to make a trade-off what kind of application what we are building, and also on top of that what kind of resolution we want to have, which we want to process. Because at the moment you increase the resolution, the data and the rate at which the data that is coming to you goes down, right? So we have to make a trade-off between them. So those are the normal challenges that you face. One of the things which is not mentioned is the mounting of the solution as well, the deployment or the installation of the solution, because we have to consider the different scenarios. Like you have built your application while just sitting in front of the Kinect or Leap Motion, but what if your actual implementation, actual installation is going to be where you have no space for a face-to-face connect, right? Maybe you want it to be deployed on top of something. So all your calculation, all your implementation will go down. So that is something which we need to consider as well and implement accordingly. Consider those situations.